At 23 years old, Daniel had only been walking with God for 8 months before giving his life to Christ. He chased parties, popularity, and whatever seemed exciting in the moment, but after encountering God's grace, everything changed. He wanted to know the Lord more than anything else. There was one habit he never skipped. Folded neatly inside his wallet was a small piece of paper with one verse written in bold ink. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his face continually. Psalm 105:4. Whenever he felt distracted, discouraged, or uncertain, he would pull out the paper, read it quietly, and remind himself God first. Everything else can wait. Then he noticed Grace. She sang on the worship team every Sunday. She was kind, joyful, and always seemed more interested in serving than being noticed. Daniel admired her, but every time he thought about introducing himself, he'd reach for the folded paper in his wallet. Seek his face continually. He wasn't afraid of relationships. He was afraid of letting one replace the place only God should have in his heart. Months passed. People at church teased him. You should ask Grace out. He would smile and simply say, right now I'm learning to follow Jesus. One evening, after Bible study, Grace unexpectedly walked beside him. I've noticed something, she said. Daniel looked confused. You always stop before leaving and read something from your wallet. He laughed nervously and showed her the paper. It's just a reminder. She read the verse and smiled. I like that. From then on, they became friends. They talked after church, prayed for one another, and encouraged each other in their faith. But Daniel kept his boundaries. He wanted any future relationship to grow from devotion to God, not replace it. Then came the obstacle. A missionary opportunity opened in another province for 6 months, and Daniel felt strongly that God wanted him to go. The timing couldn't have been worse. His friendship with Grace was growing deeper, and for the first time he wondered if he should stay. The night before making his decision, he unfolded the now worn-out piece of paper. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his face continually. He closed his eyes and whispered, Lord, if I lose anything by obeying you, then it wasn't meant for me. The next week, he left. For 6 months, they barely spoke except for occasional messages, encouraging each other with scripture. When Daniel returned, he heard heartbreaking news. Grace had accepted a job offer overseas and would be leaving in just 3 days. His heart sank. After church, he finally gathered the courage to tell her how he felt. Before he could finish, she interrupted with tears in her eyes. I've been praying for months that God would make his will clear. I liked you too, but I didn't want either of us to rush ahead of him. They stood in silence. Then came the unexpected twist. Grace reached into her own Bible and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was faded from being opened so many times. On it were the exact same words Daniel had carried every day. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his face continually. Psalm 105:4. Daniel stared in disbelief. Why do you have that verse? She smiled. Because your cousin gave it to me almost a year ago. He told me there was a young man in church who kept this scripture in his pocket and was determined to put God first. I didn't know it was you until months later. Then she laughed softly, and I decided that if the man God had for me loved Jesus enough to wait, I would wait too. A week later, the overseas company unexpectedly postponed her transfer, indefinitely because of restructuring. She stayed. The following Sunday, after the service, Daniel reached into his wallet to read his verse one more time. Instead of the old paper, he found a new one. Grace had quietly replaced it. On the back she had written, The one who seeks God's face will never miss God's best. Years later, on their wedding day, the pastor asked how their story began. Daniel smiled, held up the little folded paper for everyone to see, and answered, "It wasn't really a love story at first. It was the story of two people learning that when you seek the Lord above everything else, He knows exactly how to write the rest."